Hey, dead kids, be less dead. Let's see, from there we're going to talk about that in a second. We're going to talk about that in a second. Let's go to this. Thanks to the people who came last night, including my dead kid who was alive enough to come to my house last night and then died again, but whatever. At least you get to other dead kid who's just apparently really dead. Be less dead. We miss making fun of you.
That's Caleb.
It's not quite the same. And then thank you for those of you who came by. I did have it was the most busy one I've had, so it was fun having you guys come through. We did, I don't know if you guys, for those who came through, we did 2 different versions. We did like the easy version and the scary version. So whether you were called a ghoul or a goblin, goblins for little people, ghouls for the big ones. I had a Sand Creek kid came through, because I could tell by the age, and she came through with her mom, and she did the goblin version of it, which is the easy one, where I take off my mask, kind of like I lead the kids through. And she got to the first turn where you come around, and my daughter, who was in the trash can, was like sitting there waving, and this girl just looked around the corner where it was foggy and you can see things, and she just curled into a ball and started crying. And her mom literally had to drag her backwards out of it. And I was like, well, that's a success. And then one parent sent 3 kids who looked like they were probably first graders through by themselves. But again,
great parent.
I did goblin versions, like I'm walking with them, but this kid had to be this big, and he got to the giant werewolf that I have in there, and he just stopped and just stared at this werewolf. And he had 2 older siblings who looked like they were like 2nd or 3rd grade, and they were like grabbing his hands and pulling him, and he would just stop. And I'm like poking him. I'm like, are you going? He's like, I'm like, are you going to move? Because there's people waiting, and I'm like, the kid's not moving. And eventually he was like, shook his head and was like, okay. And he just kept going. And I was
He's the new attraction.
I was like, that was different. I'm like,
He's
I guess
the
we just
main
leave
character.
him here.
Like,
We just
whoa.
have people walk around.
Whoa.
But beyond that, it was fun. And then having kids go through apparently multiple times. Even though hopefully they only got candy the one time. But you are not the only. I had other kids who went through multiple times because I would recognize them, but apparently it was. And I had adults go through it multiple times, which entertained me too. And I had adults whose kids wouldn't go through, and they ditched their kids and they went through. That made me laugh sometimes too. So anyway, it was a good time. As far as the Charger Challenge goes, we are currently sitting at 7 people. As of 4 o'clock today, it opens up to others. If you do have invitation and you are wanting to do it, you can still take a spot. If you are wanting it, you can lock it in before 4 o'clock if you come tell me. The others of you, if you are still wanting to do it, at 4 o'clock it opens to other kids. And again, you can just come see me in person, and then as long as we have room, you are good to go. Just make sure you can do it. It's this Thursday after school.
I don't know.
And then for you guys, I believe everyone who is alive has it turned in. I believe it's just my dead kids. So dead kids, be less dead, do your homework. Living kids, go you. I don't have to yell at you as much. I don't think I had any kids to yell at in here. So yay on that one. My regular classes. Then let's go back to kid stabbing. Let's see. We get a little bit of a slow part here in this chapter where we get a chance to breathe because we just got done killing somebody.
I don't want to breathe.
It gets to go back up to Crazy Town again.
My friend told
I
me
want action.
everything that happened, and I had to like.
Right in the throat?
Yeah.
Globetrotter?
Yeah.
Well, that's your fault being from the Globetrotter. I know, right? They're the
Only friends.
there. We're at the church. And then we did Gone with the Wind.
Jesus Christ shows
We got
up.
to the hydrogen peroxide.
Jesus Christ left a message.
And then we got to the fact that JC left a message.
Jesus Christ.
Who is
Lori.
My grandma ruined a little bit for me.
That's your fault for having a grandma?
Whoa!
Kill her!
I didn't say we should go in that direction, Lori. Jada already left. Come on. And
No,
so-
she told me like the next part.
Did she tell you like, did you like the part where blah blah blah? And you're like, Grandmammy! And you're like, no! Wait, did you go, Grandma? Thwack right in the
No,
throat.
I'm not gonna do that to her.
And she was
called
like,
elder abuse.
my oxygen! And then she went to the ground.
I just said
That's
no.
called elder
It's just like,
abuse.
Grandparents. Jimmy Jam?
It's very strange because my grandma also spoiled a part for me. She was like, "Have you gotten to the part in the book where blah blah blah?"
By a bus.
And I was like, "No."
I'm sorry that you have such horrible grandparents.
No,
Gussie.
Also funny because I told my grandparents that I was reading it, and then my grandparents started talking about a completely different book that they thought was The Outsiders. Because they're just
Grandparents?
silly like that.
Yeah. They're easy to distract. Did you just snap your fingers and wave to one side?
And they always want to talk to us when we don't want to talk to them. And then when we want to talk to them, they don't want to talk to us.
I can't wait to send this video link to grandparent.
They don't know about that. They live in Chicago and St. They don't live in Indiana.
Smithy,
Is there a version of the book with head slapping?
with head snapping?
Slapping.
Oh, no, just the one part at the beginning with Derry. He slaps Ponyboy. So that part. Yes, child.
My brother told me the end, so I body slapped it.
As you
I want the
should.
slap part
Oh, yeah. Easy Globetrotter also?
Yeah.
Yeah. Globetrotters, right?
Simple.
I'm not disagreeing.
My brother was a hero and he hasn't told me anything about the book.
Alright,
I'm so sorry.
back to scary bits. Page 74, and we're not going to talk about body slamming grandparents quite as much. We're not. About halfway down, it says I didn't mean to. He finally blurted out. We left off with him crying. Because he was crying, I held him like soda and held him the day we found him lying in the lot. And then, I didn't mean to. This is Johnny blurted out. But they were drowning you, and I was so scared. He was quiet for a minute. There sure is a lot of blood in people. It's a great line. He got up suddenly and began pacing back and forth, slapping his pockets. What are we gonna do? I was crying by then. It was getting dark, and I was cold and lonesome. I closed my eyes and leaned my head back, but the tears came anyway. This is my fault, Johnny said in a miserable voice. He'd stopped crying when I started. For bringing a little 13-year-old kid along, you ought to go home. You can't get in any trouble. You didn't kill him. No! I'm 14. I've been 14 for a month, and I'm in it as much as you are. I'll stop crying in a minute. I can't help it. He slumped down beside me. I didn't mean it like that, Pony Boy. Don't cry, Pony. We'll be okay. Don't cry. I leaned against him and bawled until I went to sleep. I woke up late that night. Johnny was resting against the wall. I was asleep on his shoulder. Johnny, you awake? I was warm and sleepy. Yeah. We ain't gonna cry no more, are we? No. We're all cried out now. We're getting used to the idea. We're gonna be okay now. That's what I thought, I said drowsily. Then, for the first time since Dally and I had sat down behind those girls at the nightly double, I relaxed. We could take whatever was coming now. I think that's what the mom said to the Sand Creek girl last night, too. We're all cried out now. We're getting used to the idea. Anyway. The next 4 or 5 days were the longest days I've ever spent in my life. We killed time by reading Gone with the Wind and playing poker. Johnny sure did like that book, although he didn't know anything about the Civil War, and even less about plantations, and I had to explain a lot of it to him. It amazed me how Johnny could get more meaning out of some of the stuff in there than I could. I was supposed to be the deep one. I mean, Johnny had failed a year at school, never made good grades. He couldn't grasp anything that was shoved at him too fast, and I guess his teachers thought he was just plain dumb. But he wasn't. He was just a little slow to get things. And he liked to explore things once he did get them. He was especially stuck on the Southern gentlemen, impressed with their manners and charm. I bet they were cool old guys, he said, his eyes glowing after I'd read the part about them riding into sure death because they were gallant. They remind me of Dally. Dally? Shoot, he ain't got any more manners than I do. And you saw how he treated those girls the other night. Soda's more like them Southern boys. I mean, yeah, in the manners bit, and the charm too, I guess. But one night, I saw Dally getting picked up by the fuzz, and he kept real cool and calm the whole time. They was getting him for breaking out the windows in the school building, and it was Two-Bit who did that. And Dally knew it, but he just took the sentence without batting an eye or even denying it. That's gallant. That was the first time I realized the extent of Johnny's hero worship for Dally Winston. Of all of us, Dally's the one I like the least. He didn't have Soda's understanding, or Dash, or Two-Bit's humor, or even Derry's Superman qualities. But I realized that these three appealed to me because They were like the heroes in the novels I read. Dally was real. I liked my books and clouds and sunsets. Dally was so real, he scared me. Johnny and I never went to the front of the church. You could see the front from the road, and sometimes farm kids rode their horses by on their way to the store, so we stayed in the very back, usually sitting on the steps and looking across the valley. We could see for miles, see the ribbon of highway and the small dots that were houses and cars. We couldn't watch the sunset since the back faced east, but I loved to look at the colors of the fields and the soft shadings of the horizon. One morning, I woke up earlier than usual. Johnny and I slept huddled together for warmth. Dally had been right when he said it would get cold where we were going. Being careful not to wake Johnny up, I went to sit on the steps and smoke a cigarette. Gesundheit. The dawn was coming then. All the lower valley was covered with mist, and sometimes little pieces of it broke off and floated away in small clouds. The sky was lighter in the east, and the horizon was a thin golden line. The clouds changed from gray to pink, and the mist was touched with gold. There was a silent moment when everything held its breath, and then the sun rose. It was beautiful. Golly, Johnny's voice beside me made me jump. That sure was pretty. Yeah, I sighed, wishing I had some paint to do a picture with while the sight was still fresh in my mind. The mist was what was pretty. It was all gold and silver. I said, trying to blow a smoke ring. It's too bad it couldn't stay like that all the time. Nothing gold can stay. I was remembering a poem I'd read once. What? Nature's first green is gold. Her hardest hue to hold. Her early leaf's a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf, so Eden sank to grief. So dawn goes down to day. Nothing gold can stay. Johnny was staring at me. Where'd you learn that? Well, that's what I meant. Robert Frost wrote it. He meant more to it than I'm getting, though. I was trying to find the meaning the poet had in mind, but it eluded me. I always remembered it because I never quite got what he meant by it. I'm going to pause there because we have to come back to this poemy thing. That's going to play a big role. One, for those of you who don't wake up very early, this is what a sunrise looks like, in case it might throw some of you guys off a little bit.
Whoa.
So, the poem he mentions, where it says, nature's first green is gold, her heart is hue to hold, her early leaf's a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf, so Eden sank to grief. Dawn goes down to day, nothing gold can stay. It is both a very depressing poem and a very uplifting poem. It has two sort of versions or ways to go in and do the reading of it. One, do you guys know what Eden refers to?
The Garden of Eden.
Garden of Eden. So the idea is, nature's first green is gold, her heart is hue to hold. The idea that things start off green and beautiful, but things don't stay green and beautiful. Eventually, they die off. Her early leaves a flower, but only so an hour. You have things in springtime, flowers pop up, and then they die. So even the beautiful flowers don't stick around forever. Leaf subsides to leaf, so Eden sank to grief. So Eden is the one with Adam and Eve, but then the snake comes out and Eden gets destroyed. So Eden was supposed to be this perfect paradise for humans, and it gets destroyed. So dawn goes down to day, nothing gold can stay. The idea being at the end, everything eventually dies. Everything you love is going to eventually die. Everything you cherish is going to eventually go away. And so that's where part of the depressing thing comes in, is it's saying, if you love it, it's going to die. Because that's how life works. Life doesn't work without death. The other more uplifting meaning is, the things that you enjoy, hold on to. Don't take them for... Make sure that you cherish the things that are in your life that you enjoy. If there's a time in your life, if there's a video game you enjoy playing, if there's a person you enjoy hanging out with, if there's a friend, spend time with them while you can, because these things don't last forever. Your friendships don't last forever. The things you enjoy don't last forever. So don't always look to the future. Enjoy what you have in the moment. So that is the idea. This last line is going to pop up a lot throughout the book, that nothing gold can stay. Your gold is your happiness, the things that bring you joy. And so basically the idea is everything that brings you joy won't stick around. So hold on to the happy things while you can. Be a kid while you can be a kid. because eventually you're going to get old and bitter and hate people and dance on children's tears. And so while you're a young person and you have your own tears to dance on, enjoy them. Sorry, I forgot to give whenever her B points at the beginning for her water bottles. I just remembered. So I was writing. There you go. So that's why I wanted to put it up there, because they're going to keep referring to the idea of staying gold, and staying gold, something like that, just means stay happy, hold on to your happiness, don't let it die off. You know, Johnny said slowly, I never noticed colors and clouds and stuff until you kept reminding me about them. It seems like they were just never there before. Huh. Your family sure is funny. What happens to be so funny about it? Johnny looked at me quickly. No, I didn't mean nothing. I meant, okay, well, Soda, he kind of looks like your mother did, but he acts just exactly like your father. And Derry's the spitting image of your father, but he ain't wild and laughing all the time like he was. He acts like your mother, and you don't act like either one. I know. Well, I said, thinking it over, you ain't like any of the gang. I mean, I couldn't tell Two-Bit or Steve or even Derry about the sunrise and clouds and stuff. I couldn't even remember that poem around them. I mean, they just don't dig. It's just you and Soda Pop, and maybe Cherry Valance. Johnny shrugged. Yeah, I guess we're different. Shoot, I said, blowing a perfect smoke ring. Maybe they are. By the 5th day, I was so tired of bologna, I nearly got sick every time I looked at it. We'd eaten all our candy bars in the first 2 days, and I was dying for a Pepsi. I'm what you might call a Pepsi addict. I drink them like a fiend, and going for 5 days without one was about to kill me. Johnny promised to get some if we ran out of supplies, and had to get some more, but that didn't help me right then. I was smoking a lot more there than I usually did, I guess because it was something to do, although Johnny warned me that I'd get sick smoking so much. We were careful with our cigarettes. If that old church ever caught fire, well, there'd be no stopping it. On the 5th day, I'd read up to Sherman's siege of Atlanta and Gone with the Wind, owed Johnny $150 from poker games, smoked 2 packs of Camels, and as Johnny had predicted, I got sick. I hadn't eaten anything all day, and smoking on an empty stomach doesn't make you feel real great. I curled up in a corner to sleep off the smoke. I was just about asleep when I heard, as if from a great distance, a low, long whistle that went off in a sudden high note. I was too sleepy to pay attention, although Johnny didn't have any reason to be whistling like that. He was sitting on the back steps trying to read Gone with the Wind. I'd almost decided that I'd dreamed the outside world, and there was nothing real but bologna sandwiches and the Civil War and the old church and the mist in the valley. It seemed to me that I'd always lived in the church, or maybe lived during the Civil War and somehow gotten transplanted. That shows you what a wild imagination I have. A toad nudged me in the ribs. Glory, said a rough but familiar voice. He looks different with his hair like that. I rolled over and sat up, rubbing the sleep out of my eyes and yawning. Suddenly I blinked. Hey, Dally! Hey, pony boy! He grinned down at me. Or should I say, sleeping beauty? I never thought I'd live to see the day when I would be so glad to see Dally Winston. But right then, he meant one thing. Contact with the outside world, and it suddenly became real and vital. How's Soda Pop? Are the fuzz after us? Is Derry all right? Do you know where the boys where we are? What? Hold on, kid. I can't answer everything at once. Hey, you two want to go get something to eat first? I skipped breakfast. I'm about starved. You're starved? Johnny was so indignant he nearly squeaked. I remembered the bologna. Is it safe to go out? Yep. Dally searched his shirt pocket for a cigarette and, finding none, said, You got a cancer stick, Johnny Cake? Johnny tossed him the whole package. Fuzz won't be looking for you around here, Dally said, lighting up. They think you lit out for Texas. I've got Buck's T-Bird parked down the road a little way. Gosh almighty, boys, ain't you been eating anything? By the way, for those, that's Buck's T-Bird that he's going to be driving here in this next part.
No, that's a cool car.
So now we are done with our slow part. Now we get to go back to the non-stop action
back
stuff.
to the city.
And we're going to get to one of my favorite parts in the book tomorrow.
Yay!
What else are some?
None yet. I can give you some if you want it.
Oh, no, I don't want it.
You just got to ask nicely and I'll come up with something for you. I don't want to have a sad child in my class.
Will there be more Brovy art?
I don't. I have to think. I don't think I have Brovy art with this one. But you do get to hear me excited to talk about it.
Okay.
Hey, golf.